Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the KTBS podcast production, political podcast. It's called The App. The App, I always have to say this to clarify, the app has nothing to do with computers. In this case, the app stands for ArkLaTex People and Politics. We run the gamut talking to people on the political spectrum on this program. We have had a long line of terrific guests already. We add to that roster again today. Let's welcome in State Representative Stephen Jackson of Shreveport. He represents District 2. Stephen, thanks for being with us, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on the new podcast.
Well, I appreciate that. I know you got hung up in Baton Rouge again today because you guys, you never know where you guys are going to be. You're like all over the state. Today you wound up down in Baton. Tell us what you're doing down there today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're just getting ready for the session. Today is the last day to actually pre-file a bill. And so we're trying to tighten up all the drafts for our bills to make sure that they get pre-filed by 5 o'clock. So less than an hour away. And then we're just having some conversations about, one, how we're going to be moving forward after the failure of Amendment 2, just some of the things that's going on and the conversation that'll be taking place around Department of Transportation and some of the insurance conversations that'll be taking place. So we can tell that we're getting closer to the session.
Sure.
Because our time is sort of becoming more and more demanding, and it's very, very kind of touch and go at this point. But I'm excited about it and looking forward to it.
Well, you mentioned it, and I was going to ask you about it anyway, but the failure of Amendment 2, how does that frame now how lawmakers move forward with this session? How do you approach it now?
Yeah, I think we're going to approach it much differently. As I told folks, I think, the financial outlook is much different. What I hated to see was we did not get behind Amendment number 2, which would have given teachers, it would have at least kept in place the $2,000 stipend for teachers, and $1,000 stipend for support staff. They work so hard, and to see it gone, it's not in the governor's executive budget. And what people have to understand is if we're going to accommodate those stipends at this point, that means we're probably going to have to go in and cut somewhere else. And so I just felt like, my honest opinion, people can disagree with it. That's okay. I just felt like, we didn't have to necessarily have anything that was absolutely perfect, but we should have went with what was presented to us with Amendment 2. And then the other thing is that we had seniors would have received
right.
We would have been able to double their deduction on their income taxes. They would have basically received zero income tax. We would have eliminated the income taxes on seniors. And so how do we give retirees a pay raise? This is one way we could have given retirees a pay raise through Amendment 2. And I get it. Some people were concerned about some of the language and the broadness of it. But these bills passed the legislature overwhelmingly and bipartisan in the House, and it passed unanimously in the Senate. And so to see it not pass at the ballot box, it was disappointing, but I believe that the voters, they speak, and when they speak, we must listen. And so we've got to go back to the drawing board and figure something out.
Well, do you think some of that, I know they spoke, they said no pretty loudly, pretty resoundingly, but is some of that just, was that just too broad, that amendment too broad, too many items, and not enough good communication to let them really know what was happening?
Yeah, Jeff, I'm going to be completely honest. I think it was I think Amendment 2 died by a death of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
I think it was probably, some people would argue that it was too broad, and I would probably agree with them. They would say we didn't understand it, and I tend to tell people voters don't like confusion. If it confuses them, they'll either sit it out or they'll vote no. But you won't get them to a yes if it's too broad. The other thing is, I think that there were some social issues on the ballot that got people stirred up. And so instead of telling people go yes, no, yes, yes, no, 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 people just said say no to all of it. And that's easy to catch and remember, no to all of it, and it catches. And so I think some of those social issues around juvenile sentencing got folks stirred up, and around creating other courts. I think that got an interest group stirred up. And so you just had different interest groups attacking it from all sides. I have to be honest. I think that there's some national political backlash from what's going on at the national scene. Folks are just upset. And so I think that there was a lot of things that just kind of played into it. People were probably saying, hey, we're upset with the Trump administration right now, and so we can't take it out on the administration. We'll take it out here on this particular issue. And the governor is an ally of President Trump, so it just could have been some collateral damage. My hope is that we will at least look at two and putting some variation of Amendment 2 back out to the voters for consideration.
Listen, one of the things I've liked about the way you've comported yourself down there in Baton Rouge, and I've told you this, we've had this discussion before. Yeah. You're a brave dude, man. I mean, you get up there and you say what you think, even if it goes against the grain of your party, right? I mean, I admire you for that. And so I really take to heart what you say about what went on in this election.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jeff. I try to be a straight shooter. I was reading a book earlier this year that said, hey, anybody can be a show horse. I'm wanting to be a workhorse. And so I want to, get to work for solving problems. And people know, we can't go out and promise things are going to change and everyday life around folks are not changing. But then we get back out on the campaign stump and we make these grand statements. We're beating our fists on the table and things of that nature. And no real changes happening. And so I try to be a straight shooter. I try to call it like it is to my caucus, to my party, and to my colleagues on the other side. I try to just shoot it straight because people are hurting. And when we sit back and just play political games, we don't move the needle forward. We don't solve insurance. We don't reduce crime. We don't lower taxes. We don't attract businesses. And that's what's hurt us. Is we're just simply not being honest and forthright about the things that we're doing. And so I just try to call a thing, and hopefully folks will see that, particularly my constituents will see that we're just trying to do what's best for them.
Well, I appreciate that about you. And it kind of, some of that stuff kind of goes back to that old statement, hey, I'm all for big change. I just don't want anything to be different. Right?
Right. I mean, and that is what we're dealing with. And change is difficult. Change is hard to digest at times. But we have to try to figure out ways to move our state forward. We're the only southern state that has experienced population loss. Mississippi, even the state of Mississippi is seeing a population gain. Texas, they're seeing gains in the millions, Arkansas, they're seeing gains. So everybody around us is growing and we're not. And so we're going to have to do some things different. We're going to have to invest in early childhood education. We're going to have to invest in higher education. But we're also going to have to do some of those things like tax reform. We're going to have to look at why is the cost of insurance so high? Is that driving people away? All of these issues we have to address, and we have to be honest when we address.
Well, in the midst of all of this, there has been some pretty nice economic announcements about things coming to the state of Louisiana, the Hyundai steel plant, some of the, I forget, I mean, I'm old and feeble. You go ahead. I can't remember some of the stuff, but some pretty big announcements, right? Yeah. So
the Meta project is going to be huge for North Louisiana. I know it's located in Northeast in Richland Parish. It's going to be a huge opportunity. They're looking for some 5,000 people to come build this plant. 5,000 people being put to work to build the plant. Now, those jobs are temporary, but there's a domino effect there because you're employing local people. Those folks are going out. They're making money. They're pumping money back into the economy. And so we have to find a way to continue that kind of momentum. The Hyundai plant that was announced down in Ascension Parish, that's a plus for the state. But those were projects that were they have direct relationships to the changes that we made with regard to our tax structure.
Right.
And so companies were basically not even considering Louisiana when they looked at our tax structure and saw that in Louisiana, we taxed people, we taxed small business, small and medium-sized business, regardless of whether they made a profit or not. And so just think about that. Whether your business is profitable or not, you pay the tax just for opening a business in the state of Louisiana. Is that fair? And so we had to make those kind of structural changes in order to be attractive on the national scene. The governor has said he thinks the Great the next great economic boom for the state of Louisiana is in North Louisiana. My hope is that it's on the northwest side of
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
But look at the Libby Glass plant. The state came in and we made a bold decision to purchase the old Libby Glass plant. We're going to clear it out by the end of this year, turn it into a certified site, get utilities running to it, and we want to make it attractive and we want to make it shovel ready for a company to come in and add quality jobs to our economy.
Well, one of the things you said there does raise a pretty big question that some of these things, these big plants like the Hyundai steel plant, moved into Louisiana based on changes to the tax structure. Some of those changes were in Amendment 2. They went down to defeat. Whoops. I mean, are these places going to still continue to come to Louisiana, or are they going to look around now?
No, I think they will continue to come. I think there are some things that we can do in the interim through statute. What we didn't do with Amendment 2. Amendment 2, the goal of Amendment 2 was to make these things permanent.
Yeah.
Right now, they're just temporary sort of bridges. The goal of Amendment 2 was to make it permanent, make the changes permanent. And so I think there'll be some things that you will see in this session to try to address that. I know the governor and LED, they have been having conversations. Secretary Bourgeois, she talked very candid and direct about the failure of Amendment 2 and appropriations earlier this week, talking about, businesses were looking at that. And they're working hard to try to keep those businesses interested. We are positive. They're hearing positive things about the relationships with those businesses and their interests. It wasn't just the tax code. I think that was a big issue. But when they look at our natural resources, our access to water, our access to rail, our interstate systems, they're looking at a lot of things to make their decision. I think, the tax change was probably the big factor, but there are other things that attract people to Louisiana. The low cost of doing business here, the cost of living compared to some of the other states that they were in. Or that were out there competing against us. We compete pretty well against other states when it comes to other metrics. So there are some things that we do have to address: our education system, higher education, and our tax code being some of the big three, and insurance, some of the big four things that we have to address.
Well, and you mentioned that you're right on the heels here, not at heels, but getting ready to go into a new session. It'll be a fiscal session this time around, so you get to carry 5 bills that are not fiscal bills. Any particular bills? I know there are some. Talk to me about some of the bills you've got planned.
Sure. So I have a couple of bills that are non-fiscal. So I have one bill, as we have discussed at length on KTBS, and thank you all for getting the word out about this, is the issue dealing with utility misappropriation. Holding individuals accountable. We're not trying to criminalize anything. I tell people it is a crime to steal folks' money. It is a crime to say that we have a contract, we have an agreement that I'm going to pay you to provide a service for me, and instead of paying for that service, you pocket the money. That's a crime. And what we're going to do is we're going to close the loophole. I don't know if you saw, but in Lake Charles just last week, there was another community in Lake Charles that dealt with this same situation down in Lake Charles. And so it's not just limited to Caddo Parish. It's not just limited to Shreveport. This is something that individuals across the state, if we don't close this loophole, a person who's an opportunist, who's an avarice, who's a criminal and who thinks that way, they will take advantage of that opportunity. Another bill that I'm going to work on is, and I just filed this bill, it just got released today, is trying to raise the limit on what's called promotional play for our gaming industry. We have a very robust gaming industry in Shreveport and Bossier. I have all of those casinos in my district. So every single licensee in Northwest Louisiana is in House District 2. And so I'm concerned when we see some of our casinos not doing and performing the same as they did 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we know that's because they've legalized gaming in Oklahoma, they've legalized gaming in Mississippi. And so we're having to compete now with a market that we didn't have to compete 10, 12, 15 years ago. Texas is constantly talking about legalizing gaming. And so we have to do things that are going to make our gaming sector, our gaming industry competitive. What we don't see in our competing states is they don't have a cap on how much promotional play that they do. And so I'm running a bill this session to raise the cap on how much promo play that our gaming industry can do so that they can stay competitive. We're excited about what Live is doing, but I want to continue to see the Bollies, Samstown, Margaritaville, and Horseshoe, and Boomtown. I want to continue to see them thrive in our market. I'll say this, when I first started, my first job was running valet at Ala Capri Casino. And I remember bus loads of individuals pulling up to Ala Capri from Texas on the weekend. Those buses now go up to Oklahoma because it's convenient, and Oklahoma is giving away so much free play. They're making it easier for them to get in their doors. And so we want to make it easy for people to come into the doors for casinos in Northwest Louisiana.
Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I'm not a gambler, but explain that to me a little bit more in detail. You say raise the promotional cap. You mean I'll just let you speak.
Sure. So in right now in Louisiana, individuals who have, or companies, I shouldn't say individuals, companies who have gaming license, they are casinos and they have a gaming license. Right now, they can give out up to $5 million in free play. And so people may get a coupon for $100 and say, hey, here's a $100 voucher to come play at the casino. Well, right now, the casinos, the licensees, they are limited to 5 million. And so if you've got Caesars, for instance, Caesars has 4 or 5 properties in the state of Louisiana. So they're having to split that $5 million across several properties. And so they're limited in how much free play that they can do. But if we look to the east in Mississippi, there is no cap. In Louisiana, once that property or that company hits its $5 million cap, the state of Louisiana now taxes that company at 15%. And so there's a tax that kicks in once they hit that $5 million. That doesn't take place in Texas. That doesn't take place in Oklahoma. And so they're able to give away more of those vouchers now. So whereas in Louisiana, you might get 2 vouchers from a Louisiana gaming operation.
Yeah.
In Mississippi or Mississippi or Oklahoma, they're giving you 5 because they don't have a cap on their promotional play.
Okay, so those are just used to entice people to come to your establishment. They use the free play, and then they stay and buy food and get a room and gamble beyond the limit. Yeah, okay, I get it.
Correct. And so just imagine that going out to folks in Texas and Arkansas. That's what draws people into the casino. Okay. Hey, here's $100 or here's a $200 coupon, the high rolls and those kind of things. And so it's something to incentivize people coming in. And again, like you just said, they're going to get gas. They're going to stop at a grocery, they may stay over, and they may go, buy something from the grocery store while they're here. They're going to support our brick and mortar casinos that we have in Shreveport, and they're supporting the jobs. The casino industry, the gaming industry supports thousands of jobs across Northwest Louisiana and across the state of Louisiana.
Well, I didn't know that you worked as a valet at one of the casinos back in the old days.
Bad secret here. I actually learned how to drive a stick shift. I learned how to drive a manual shift. I kind of embellished my qualifications and said that I knew how to drive a stick. And I learned how to drive a stick running at valet, but it was my very first job. I enjoyed it. It was some quick money. I was fresh out of high school, headed to college, making some good money. And, there were weekends where, I'd make just imagine as a college freshman, you're making $400 and $500 on the weekend, bringing home $400 and $500 on the weekend. That was good money for me.
It's good money. It's still good money.
Yes, in 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're making $500-$600 that you're bringing home, and so that's going to be something that I'm hoping that we can reinvigorate our gaming market in Northwest Louisiana. Well,
you mentioned that you saw those busloads of people coming into those casinos back then, and they're not coming there now. Is the live casino, is that becoming an attraction to bring some of those busloads back?
Absolutely. And what's good about Live is they have a Texas component. And so they are seeing what's taking place in the Texas area. And so what we're trying to do is build on that synergy. And we're hoping that Live will tap into those other markets. And we're excited about what Live is doing. They're bringing entertainment. They're bringing gaming, they're bringing food and beverage. And so the goal is to build and capitalize on that. And so if we can expand on that, Margaritaville is doing good. They're going to have Chasing Acres opening up in a few months next to them with the virtual golf. And so the goal is, how do we build and capitalize on all of these projects so that we can continue to have the momentum that is there. And so if that promo play help support that, I'm hoping we can push that all the way to the end.
I think that's, like I said, I think that's a terrific idea. I would think that with the investment the state has made in this sector, that'd probably sail through the legislature, wouldn't it?
You would think, but again, with Amendment 2 not passing,
Yeah.
it's a revenue question, right?
Right.
So, if we're going to give people more, if we're going to give people more room to give away promotional play, some may see that as less money coming in. What we think is, when you look at the long-term effects, right? So somebody comes in, they may get $100 to come play, but if they come in and they're spending taxes, that's money that we would have never received.
Yeah.
That's somebody who, when they purchase something, if they purchase gas or if they buy an item out of the convenience store or at the the stand at one of the restaurants in the casino, that's a tax on that. The state collects a tax on that. And so we can recoup that money, and the state is not at a net loss on those type of things.
And and we've talked about this, but I want to pivot back to it just for a minute about the problems with the utilities and the big apartment complexes. And really, I just don't understand how these landlords can get away with this. Is this a crime that's committed against the individual renters, or is this against the city, or is it both?
You really could say that it's both. I know Senator Jenkins is going to run a bill that will deal with sort of civil issues where they're going to put a lien in place on those properties before they're sold. And so, yes, but it is criminal. Basically, a landlord or a property owner, they receive the money to do one thing and they do something else. If you give me money to go buy lunch for you, and instead of going and buying lunch for you, I go and buy myself a new pair of shoes, that's theft.
Yeah.
That's stealing from you. And you would have every right to press charges against me, and I would be dead wrong. And so this is a crime. And there's a loophole, basically. And the loophole is that individuals are filing these companies. They're doing this under the auspices of an LLC or a sole proprietorship or an S corp. And you can't put an LLC in jail. You can't put an S corp in jail. And so we have come up with mechanisms, and we've come up with things. We're working with the District Attorneys Association to try to work out some of the language, to try to come up with some of the things that we can do to pierce that corporate veil and make sure that the penalties are there in place.
Well, I think that's a good idea. Shreveport, no place really wants to see a repeat of what's been going on here over the last quite a few months, actually. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think, what really happens is you put families in disarray who are already probably living one check to the next. They go out, they work hard, they spend their hard-earned money to do the right thing, right? To pay their bills, pay their utilities. Yeah. And next thing you know, they're not necessarily evicted, but they have to go somewhere else, because you can't live somewhere where you don't know whether the water is going to be on one day to the next. Yeah. They deserve stability, and they deserve a landlord that's going to do the right thing by them.
Well, Steve, you're also on the Transportation Committee in the legislature. And of course, the roads and bridges have been a huge topic of discussion for years throughout the whole state. We got some work going on here with the Jimmy Davis Bridge, et cetera, and redoing I-20, et cetera, et cetera. What can we look forward to from the Department of Transportation or the Transportation Committee?
Yeah, we are looking. One of the things that we're looking at with transportation is basically a remake of that department. There's discussion about how do we remake this department. One of the things that we are really, really trying to move forward with is how do we get projects quicker? How do we get them going quicker? It takes an immeasurable amount of time to get projects going right now. And so what we're trying to do is how do we get these projects so we're not waiting 3 and 4 and 5 years just to get dirt turning for a project. It just shouldn't take that long. And so a consultant was hired by the governor, and then a consultant was hired by the legislature to look at it. And they've come back and presented us with some ideas. I don't know whether those ideas will be accepted wholesale. The legislature can tweak some of those changes. But what we are going to try to do is we're going to try to see how can we get some of our projects. Once we fund a project, we don't want the funding to just sit there, right? We want to be able to move this funding, get dirt turning, get shovels in the ground, and get things going well. I can tell you some good news on the good news front. 4th Street at some point this year in 2025 is slated to be resurfaced. So you should see good, clean, pretty asphalt on 4th Street.
Okay.
And one of the big projects, we know everybody was excited about Uri, but one of the big projects is Hearn Avenue. In the next couple of months, you'll start seeing those orange cones go out on portions of Hearn Avenue, a huge portion of Hearn Avenue. I think from 3132, starting on Mansfield Road, and where it turns into Hearn Avenue, going all the way up to Greenwood Road, right at Willis-Knighton Health Center. And so we're going to do our best to get it done as quick as possible with less inconvenience to our citizens. But Hearn Avenue is one of those big ones. And so I think people should be happy about that.
The only thing better than seeing those cones go out is seeing them go away again.
Go away again. And that good, my colleague Kelly Dickerson, Rep Dickerson, she says she has a saying that people love pretty asphalt.
Yeah. Well, she's right. I think that's true. All right, we're down to our final minute or so here. Looking ahead to the session, what's the final message you'd like to leave people with about that upcoming fiscal session?
Yeah, what I will tell people is, let's be vigilant, let's be engaged, let's be informed. We hadn't talked about it, but there's a bill that has been filed by our local lawmaker to remove the film tax credits and historic tax credits again. And so we're going to have to fight that battle again. We're going to have to try to preserve them. But, what they're going to say is, hey, we have this big budget deficit, right? Because Amendment 2 didn't pass.
Right.
And so here's a way to close that deficit. That's why I'm telling people, I think some folks kind of approached Amendment 2 very, very haphazardly a little bit. And so they're going to try to use cuts to historic and film tax credits to close the gap. And so now we have to go and try to fight to preserve this, where we wouldn't have to have that argument had Amendment 2 passed. And so I'm going to tell people, be encouraged, be vigilant, be active, tune in, watch. They should watch your political segment to make sure that they know what's going on, because you keep folks informed on what's going on day to day. And so I'm optimistic that we will come out with a good session, with a balanced budget. And my hope is that we can find relief for seniors. We can find relief for teachers and educators and support staff. And we're even talking about how can we do things like no taxes on tips. So we're going to try to help individuals who make wages and they're living off of tips. That bill has been filed by Representative Knox. And so I think you're going to see a lot of controversial things come in this session, but I'm optimistic that we'll overcome some of those things, and we're going to do a lot of good for the state of Louisiana and the citizens of Louisiana.
Well, that all sounds great, but I do have to ask you, I got to follow up here. You guys fought this battle on the tax credits last year, right?
We did.
I mean, the film tax credits.
You're absolutely right. We did. And what people have to understand is a legislator can file a bill at any time to get rid of them. And so we're going to have to continue to make our case. That's why I think it is important for if 50 Cent is going to do a project, it's important for people to see exactly what is he going to do. It's important for people to know exactly what is going to happen. We have to stand by our film industry here. We have to do right by the film industry here. We have to do right by historic tax credits and what it does for Main Street, not just our urban centers, but what it does for Main Street. But not passing Amendment 2, right, gives people a valid argument to say, we have a $200 million budget hole. How can we close our $200 million budget hole? Let's pare back these credits. And so people are going to try to make that argument. My position is that's not a good argument to make. Let's find somewhere else. Let's tweak some things. But this is not a place where we should cut those tax credits at.
All right, Stephen, I always appreciate your forthrightness and your willingness to stand up and say what you feel. It's refreshing. All right.
Appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Representative Stephen Jackson, representing District 2. He's been our guest today on the app, ArkLaTex People and Politics, available wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on all KTBS digital platforms as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.